Hello and welcome to another episode of Death by Bunjie. On this episode of Death by Bunjie, you are going to see the Ravin LR crossbow. It's their new one this year for 2025, or at least it's the first thing that they've offered this year in 2025 as a new offering from Ravin Crossbows. I'm pretty excited about it. This is the time of year when we start looking at new stuff from crossbow manufacturers, is it not? And from Wyvern Creations right here, we got Wyvern Creations, Lee, New Hampshire. Check out our friends at Wyvern Creations. I can tell you that Wyvern Creations has definitely been a friend of Bunjie. Dave up there, great people. We'll take a quick gander at Wyvern Creations and we see that crossbow. We're going to look at that closely. And here we have it for $2,499.99. Less than $2,500. You can't beat that. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. Out of my league, that's for sure. It is one that we are going to take a look at here because we look at new crossbows and new crossbow technology with an eye toward the future now, don't we? In my last video, we looked at a couple of 10-point crossbows. Some people commented, look, there's nothing new from 10-point this year, right? There's a 460, which they had a 460 last year. I talked about that in the video. And other people commented that they're giving up on the 500 feet per second mark. That's not the case, at least not in my view. When I look at these crossbows, certainly speed, breaking that 500 feet per second barrier, is a big, momentous occasion. It's a big deal. To me it is, right? Because it moves crossbows forward, because it creates competition amongst crossbow manufacturers. 500 feet per second is a certain threshold that both Ravin and 10-point still offer crossbows at or above that threshold. That's fantastic. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing we're measuring new crossbows by. It's not the only factor. Speed isn't the only thing that we're interested in here. What are we interested in? Think about it. You know, because you watched my last video and because you've watched Death by Bunjie before. And we are looking at these crossbows with an eye towards smaller, faster, lighter, denser, cheaper. Kaboom, there it is, right? Faster is one of those things. It's not the only one. There's a lot of other things we are looking at. Let's see what Ravin's got for us this year. Kaboom, their Facebook page. That is a good looking crossbow right there. That's the R18 with this kind of goofy looking, some kind of bridge looking thing. I don't know. That is not what we're looking at here. It's a very, very nice picture. Very nice picture. But we are looking at the new stuff here. The all-new Ravin LR is built to deliver unmatched precision at ranges up to 135 yards. Wow, that's a pretty far stretch. Never shot that far in my whole life. Giving you the ultimate control when it matters most. Ultimate control. Let's see what we have that guarantees us and promises us and provides us with ultimate control. I like these adjectives like ultimate. That's a good one. Extended Picatinny rail for additional accessories. That's nice. If we look down here at this picture, one thing we talked about in our last one, come on, load that picture. There we go. In our last video, these pictures are really nice. Holy cow, they got some high-end camera gear for these pictures. Lots of saturation in the trees. We've got the nice backdrop. We've got the sort of out of focus background, all the bokeh in the background and all that stuff. It's really nice pictures. Photography is a big deal for me. But anyway, what do we got for a crossbow? We have that long Picatinny rail. I love it. You can put the Burris Oracle X right on here and kaboom, you've got this really good looking crossbow. That is, at first blush, very interesting of a design for a crossbow. Well, let's get out of the pictures. Let's finish reading this first before we do that. Let's look at the crossbow after we've read about it first. Adjustable stock for custom length of pull and cheek comb height. Very nice. I'm anxious to see that. That is one thing that I have. The Black Widow, the R29X from Ravin, and that crossbow does not have the adjustable stock for custom length, nor does it have the cheek comb height adjustment either. 1:8 by 24 adjustable turret scope and scope level. That is an old school style scope. It's a vintage scope. The speed ring scope is what we're seeing on this. Over the years, that is another improvement, I believe, another piece of technological advancement is these range finding scopes that are coming out. And there's at least two on the market, right? Maybe three. There's that are crossbow worthy, right? And then there is another one coming that we're going to talk about here in the next month or so. Fingers crossed. I hope it comes out good, and I'm excited about it. There's other neat stuff coming right here on Death by Bunjie. Basically, in the world of crossbows, you can't beat it. Integrated draw handle. Interesting that they've got that integrated now to where that is part of the crossbow. Integrated to me means part of the crossbow. It means I don't have to get a separate piece of equipment. I don't like cranks because they slow you down, but in the past, my only experience really with cranks was the Excalibur style, where you go into your backpack, you get out this separate piece of equipment, you put on your little
hand gear and all this stuff, safety gear, and then you put the attachment on there, then you put the handle on there, and then you crank it back, and you do your thing and put it all away for next time.
And that's pain in the neck. I don't like it. I have grown up as a crossbow hunter with rope cocking, right? So that's my thing. However, integrated cranks, a crank that's built in, that extends down the rail, grabs the string, pulls back. I was a little suspicious of that kind of technology, but I got to tell you, when using the R29X, that's the selling point for me. I really like it. It's fast. You don't really have to move the crossbow around as much. You just put it on here. An integrated handle, where I don't have to worry about losing that handle, right? That would be even better. That would be another piece of equipment that I would really, really like. So what we're looking at, we'll go back to this picture. What that means is this trigger box right here. You got your safety. Look at the safeties right there above your thumb. Ooh, I'm liking this already. Look at the design. That is different from, if I remember correctly, the R29X, the Black Widow. But essentially your crank, this goes down, grabs the string and crank it back. And here is our integrated handle. It's in there, but it's backwards. I know what's gonna happen. I bet we flip this handle, it snaps in there. Look at that. Would you look at that?
Well, would you look at that?
Yeah. Right there, we do see there's a little piece of plastic right there from that synthetic stock right there sticking up. And you lift this up, swing it out, do your cranking, swing it back in there and snap it in place. That looks like a good design. I like that. That's an improvement. Just by way of comparison, well, let's get this bad boy out here. This is the Black Widow. Why does it always do that? And we see some differences here, don't we? Now, on this crossbow, here's the safety is right here on the trigger box, but that trigger box clear back here, okay? Trigger box is clear back here, and my hand, of course, would be here. So that trigger box, I have to reach back here, work the safety. It is on both sides. The safety is ambidextrous. So I've got a lever, that little orange lever will, I don't know if you can see it, but there's my orange lever because it's uncocked at this point. But if I draw that back, the trigger box will be back here and the safety will be back here. So I'll be ready to shoot, but I got to reach back here, work the safety and go forward, or reach over here to the safety and all that kind of stuff. It is a little bit of I don't like it as much, I'm not as big a fan. But I can tell you on the SWAT X1, that was very similar to that. I was a little hesitant, but I can tell you that in the end on the SWAT X1, it really didn't affect it that much. Nice Picatinny rail on here. Not as long as that one, but that is a longer crossbow by the looks of things because we're only drawing back to here for the length for the power stroke. So that'll be here, but it looks like they have increased. I'm just looking at the picture. This looks a little bit better too. This is my complaint about the R29X also. The distance between here, where your hand goes, and there is just, there's way too much. Like, look at that. I don't need that much room. That trigger should be way forward of that. And it kind of looks like this trigger opening is not nearly as big on the LR. So let's see where that takes us, okay? Interesting. I'm interested in the design already. These are a little bit of improvements that we are seeing. 3.001 premium arrows are included, okay? So we're probably stuck with those Ravin arrows again, I'm sure of that, but it is what it is. And those of you who want to go back and look at the R29X videos from last year during Crossbow Appreciation Month, go look at those. You'll see what I'm talking about with these arrows and my likes and dislikes and all that good stuff. So you can go check that stuff out. So that completes that Facebook post on this crossbow. Now we can look at the pictures. What do you think of that color? Yeah. Keep the prices down without camo, by taking the camo off. I'm not kidding. That is actually a thing. They reduced the price, I believe, because they probably have to pay a licensing fee for the use of camouflage, camo patterns, unless they want to make up a camo pattern of their own. So that's a thing. Nice front end on this thing. That scope, we'll talk about that in a second. This is the helicoil technology that Ravin uses. These cams rotate more than most cams. That increases the amount of speed that you're getting with the arrow launch. Very important. I do like that. Here's another look at those cams, and that is a nice piece of Ravin engineering. We saw that last year when we were looking at crossbows. It's good stuff. It really is. This scope, I can tell you, that looks like the scope that came on this crossbow, which I parted out and sold. I sold it to the guy that actually sold me this crossbow. Sold it back to him because I would put a Burris Oracle X on here. And when I get ready, when it warms up outside, right, we'll go out there and we'll put a big old Burris Oracle X on there and see what happens with that. Or a different range finding scope. We're going to see, right? We're going to play it by ear. We don't have to make that decision today. We're going to have to wait until it warms up. Then we can worry about that. So we do see a couple of other things here too. Look at this. That is different from the R29X. And here's the back side of that handle. So you can see where it flips down in here. It does give us this piece along here for added strength. This crossbow, the Black Widow, does not have that, although there's holes here where I could mount something on there, I guess. I don't know if there's an attachment that Ravin sells. I'm really not as deep into this crossbow as I am with the other ones that I'm using, because you have limited time, of course. But if we bolted something on here, that handle can mount to that or something, I don't know. But I have a very similar cocking mechanism. And I can tell you, this cocking mechanism, I love. No complaints whatsoever. whatsoever about that cocking mechanism. That's enough of the Facebook page. We're going to go on to the actual Ravin page because we're going to talk about a couple of things with regard to this crossbow that I think are worthy of discussion. I think I am already a member of the Ravin Nation, so I can skip out of that. That is a good looking crossbow he's got right there too. I really do kind of like the Ravins. They're like a love-hate kind of crossbow company. People either love them or hate them, more so than any other crossbow out there. And one of the reasons for that, I think, is there's numerous reasons, right? There's a little bit of envy over the price. You can't get into the Ravin Club without a bunch of money, which is more money than I want to spend on a crossbow. I got a deal on this. That's the reason I have this, but I really wanted a 450 feet per second or better crossbow so I could shoot it in the 60-yard backyard and talk about it and make videos about it, right? I can't be talking about modern and ultra-modern crossbows if I don't have an ultra-modern crossbow. So this guy, the R29X, is my version of the ultra-modern crossbows, that 400 feet per second and above. That's what I consider the ultra-modern speed. So let's shop some crossbows right here, shall we? We're gonna click on Shop Crossbows. Look at what we got. We got all kinds of stuff. All right, I don't see the LR on here. What's going on? What is going on? Well, there's the R10X. That is like a classic crossbow from Ravin. And if you look here, this has that same crank assembly here where it just snaps in place there. So that's what we're seeing on this LR. We are seeing an R10X platform by the looks of things. This is a crossbow. I think this one shoots like 430 now, right? 420 with a 400 grain arrow. Real important to mention about the Ravins. When I talk about the Ravins, other things I like about them, they get their speeds with 400 grain arrows, and their speeds do reach what they say. This thing, when I shot it, was 452 or something like that, 451, with a 400 grain arrow. You shoot that, you reach their speeds. They're advertised speeds. This is not one of the companies that pretends that you can, get speeds up to a certain speed. But they do that with a 400 grain arrow, which in this modern era, especially with these high draw weight crossbows, a 400 grain arrow or more is what I would recommend on any of these. You shouldn't be shooting like 350s and 370s. And those companies that market 350 grain arrow speeds, I'm not a big fan of that. Not a big fan. I'm not seeing, what's the deal here? Let's go to the main Ravin page. Here it is. All right, we click on that. The all new LR. That's the whole name, the LR. But we do see the R10X style stock, okay, and foregrip. Look at the difference with the foregrip on that bad boy. This one has this is a more compact crossbow, but the foregrip on this being up front the way it is just a rounded little foregrip, right? And you got limitations on where you can put your hand. I think it has good balance, to be honest with you. It looks funny, but when you get it all cocked and ready to go, it seems to ride nice, you know what I'm saying? But you have more options on a foregrip such as this, where you can put your hand out all through here, okay? You got all kinds of options for that. Plus you got room for your vice grip, tripod, and your hand on the front, or vice versa. You're not interfering with stuff. When we see crossbows get smaller, again, we're looking at smaller, faster, lighter, denser, cheaper. Smaller is a mark of technological advancement. And when we see technological advancement getting smaller, you got to cram stuff in there, and it's nice to have a foregrip on this. This one is not in the smaller category. It's not a big crossbow. By my standards, this crossbow is tiny, right? I hunted with one that was 36 inches wide for over 10 years. That is not an example of smaller, right? I don't think there was ever a bigger crossbow made, really. This is smaller, right? Like, this is small compared to that. Look how your safety is going to be right up over your thumb. Very nice, very nice. Look how narrow it is, right? Not wide at all, very narrow. Let's look at the specs. We are looking at, with a 400 grain arrow, we are looking at 450 feet per second. Again, hats off to Ravin about 450 feet per second with a 400 grain arrow. They're not pretending that 350 is okay in the modern era. It simply is not. 450 feet per second with a 400 grain arrow is beautiful. 180 foot-pounds of kinetic energy in that arrow. Wow, that's huge. I like how they're giving us this as well. Another reason I like that is because that 400 grains, we don't have to go reverse engineer it. Remember what we've done in the past, we go to Death by Bunjie. There's me and my big old Maryland buck from this year. That was a fun one. That is the SWAT X1, the Enforcer. Look at that. Look at that bad boy with that Burris Oracle X Scope. That is a sweet crossbow setup indeed. But we're going to go to calculators, and we're going to go down here to a calculator for every purpose and say hi to old grumpy hunter. Hi, Gary. Hi, Gary. There's Gary. So we'll say hi to him real quick. But we're going to click on the calculators, our joint effort between Death by Bunjie and Old Grumpy Hunter. And there is a calculator on here that will calculate, right here it is, the arrow weight used to get manufacturer's stated specs. Now this one, they are claiming 450. And the kinetic energy, what'd they say, 180? Kaboom. And we're going to click on 180. We're going to type in 180 and make sure that's correct. Calculate arrow weight. And that gives us, look at that, 400 grains. So, and 0.799 slugs of momentum. Holy cow. That's a lot of momentum coming out of that crossbow. That is to high end of the 0.7s, almost to 0.8 slugs of momentum with a 400 grain arrow. You put a 450 grain broadhead on that arrow or field point, and you are now in the 0.8s. Wow. This is a high-end crossbow, very similar to the R29X specs, so I am liking that. Very neat. Length is 34 inches. Now that's considerably longer. That's like Bunjie era length, right? That R10 is an older platform, and the R10X is an older platform, but that is a longer crossbow than this guy, okay? It is going to be a longer crossbow, so we're not in the smaller category. Draw force, draw force. The force of drawing it is 12 pounds. That is the new terminology. We don't talk about the draw weight on crossbows anymore. Gary, I need to know if there's a way to calculate the draw weight on these crossbows using manufacturer's stated specs. That is a calculator that we ought to be working on, I think, right? I'm the idea guy behind all these calculators. Gary's the guy that goes and does the math and puts them together. So maybe that's something we can work on. It might be on there for all I know. If you look at the calculators on that site, there's just pages of calculators, lots of stuff on there. So lots of stuff to do. But 12 pounds, that's the amount of effort it takes to crank this thing, which is right in the mix for modern crossbows, that 12 pounds. Some of them are higher than that. Those 500 feet per second crossbows jacks that draw force or draw effort. I think Excalibur calls it draw effort, but jacks that right up. Helicoil technology, that's those cams. Those are high end. I really like that. Quad limb composite. That just means that we have, of course, if you look at it there, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 limbs, right? Now here we see, in contrast to last week's video with 10-point crossbows, their new offerings, this is a single riser design. One riser comes out, attaches limbs down here, attaches limbs down here. Right, they're attached right here, right? Attached. Screwed right in there. Good. So that's the single riser design. Time will tell whether 10 points is like this great thing, right? We'll see. We'll find out. All right. Woo! Look at that. That is a good looking crossbow. The scope, incidentally, has a dial on top, and what you're doing is you're using a rangefinder to collect your yardage. Once you've determined your yardage, you turn the dial to get to the distance, and then it will be dead on with a single reticle, and that single reticle will be dead on at that distance. That is the scope that I don't really care for that because I don't want to carry an extra rangefinder. In this day and age, I want it all built into one piece of equipment. Two things I want to discuss about this crossbow though, okay? One is, it's easy to look at this and say, well, this isn't a new crossbow. This is a combination of two platforms from Ravin, the R10 and the R29X. The front end giving us R29X speeds and the stock being that of an R10X. To that, I say, yeah, that's probably true, but it's still pretty cool, right? It is denser. When we talk about smaller, faster, lighter, denser, cheaper, denser means more option rich. There's more options. And here we've taken two tried, true, and tested parts of the Ravin platform, right? And combined them into one crossbow for a crossbow that is a long distance monster, right? Shooting long distance. It's long range is the idea. And we're going to talk about that now. From Ravin, the new Ravin LR redefines long range crossbow accuracy and performance. Inspired by modern day long range rifles. Here goes Ravin again with their rifle talk, right? We'll talk about that in a second here. It delivers power, precision, and incredible accuracy, featuring a longer profile for enhanced balance and reduced recoil. A longer profile for enhanced balance and reduced recoil. So that is the feature that is providing us with that longer range accuracy, longer range than this crossbow. This crossbow, a little bit shorter. You feel the recoil more. Remember I told you how it hurt my ears when I shoot it, for example? It's a flincher, makes you flinch shooting it. You know, this one, something to get used to. The longer platform from the R10X might help alleviate some of that. Also, if it has better balance, that can increase the accuracy, and that might improve the accuracy downrange, why they're talking about this in the context of downrange. Shooting at 450 with 222 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. Did you see this? Here we have 222 foot-pounds of kinetic energy, and that one says 180. What if it's 222? Now that would be with a 500 grain arrow to get that much energy. And then you're almost at a full slug of momentum. I don't think that's accurate. If I had to pick between these two, you Ravin fanatics out there, you Ravin fanboys, if you want to tell me, are we dealing with 222 foot-pounds of kinetic energy? Or are we dealing with 180 foot-pounds of kinetic energy? I want to know. That's a big deal to me. That's a little bit of a faux pas. I think something went wrong here. But if this crossbow is shooting 450 feet per second with a 500 grain arrow, this is faster. You understand? Even though it's still 450 feet per second, doing it with 100 grains more arrow weight, that's a big deal. Otherwise, it's a typo and they need to fix that on their website. So, and it's possible with the longer platform that you can stretch that arrow speed up. Power stroke being longer with a longer platform, maybe the power stroke is longer, and that's how they can get 450 with a 500 grainer. If they can do that, this is a huge deal. I just don't think that's accurate, but we'll find out. We're gonna have to leave me some comments, and I'll put something in the comments when I find out the answer to that question. Other big topic, of course, when it comes to Ravin in general, but specifically this crossbow, we're now talking about accuracy out to 135 yards. On one hand, I've been critical in the past, continue to do so, I guess, with Ravin comparing their crossbows to rifles. My concern there is that new crossbow hunters need to understand that this is not a rifle. It is still killing through blood loss, not through concussive force. You aren't going to shatter bones and all that good stuff like you will with a rifle. You need to have precision accuracy, but it isn't like a rifle where we're aiming at a paper plate. It is something where we need pinpoint accuracy. Aim small, miss small. We prefer closer shots because you're always going to be more accurate closer up than you are far out. 135 yards is a long stretch, and I understand people appreciate the fact that these crossbows can be accurate out to 135 yards. That's not a hunting distance for me, and I don't think it is, for most of us, really. I hope it isn't. The fact that the crossbow can accurately shoot that distance doesn't mean that your living target is still going to be in that spot when the arrow gets there. There's lots of issues with that. For me, I really like at 360 feet per second that I'm shooting now, I like 35 yards and in. I don't have to play games with my aiming. I know that the deer, for example, is not going to duck that string. I'm going to get precision accuracy out to 35 yards at that speed. A speed like this at 450 does give me more options as far as distance, but it gives me a lot more power. It gives me a lot more flatter shooting. It gives me a lot of other improvements on accuracy too, not just distance, right? And deer ducking the string and all that. But let's be clear. Times change, right? That was the theme of this year's crossbow seasons right here on Death by Bunjie. Times change. When we look at modern crossbows, they do give us advancements in technology. They do give us different options. Time was where I was shooting 20 and under, and that was just the most you're going to shoot with a crossbow. And now I'm out to 35 yards with my gear of choice, right? This stretches me out probably to 40, 45 with that same aiming concept, my same preferences for aiming, my same preferences for accuracy with modern equipment and ultra modern equipment. Times change. I don't know if they changed so much already that we're up to 135 yards, but we're talking about 135 yards in the backyard where we weren't before, right? Back in 2017, Mission came out with the sub 1. And what does sub 1 mean? Sub 1 means less than 1 inch groups at 100 yards. That's what it's capable of. That is insane level of accuracy at 100 yards. I've never taken a shot at 100 yards. My longest shot ever was 81 yards with the original Bunjie. Yeah, that's a good shot. And I've never shot that far in the backyard or anywhere with that. But that's the value of a range-finding scope, right? So that was part of that too. When we look at these modern crossbows, times change. And I'm not saying we can shoot at 135 yards, but I am saying that we're not limited to 20 yards anymore, right? This isn't 2010. That's not what this is. So we do have changes. We are pushing the envelope, and that is just advancements in crossbow technology. That's what it is. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. Going back 5, 6, 7 years ago, Mission was advertising 100-yard shots, right? So I get that We don't want them encouraging, we don't want these manufacturers encouraging long distance shots, but it's not exactly a new concept, okay? It's not. Don't take those extremely long shots on deer with your crossbow. You're just gonna be disappointed. But do enjoy looking at some of this new technology with me, right? Do enjoy that. Check back in the near future when we look at other new offerings from various manufacturers. It's that time of year. Until the next video, all hail Bunjie.